All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to another Brain Milk. I'm here with Adrian Polk. You want to introduce yourself? You want to
Yeah.
say anything about what you do in life?
I'm Adrian Polk. I have a little Substack. I don't write very much. I have a day
Yeah, you
job.
really haven't written anything in a while, have you?
Yeah, no, it's been a hot
You got a
minute.
day job?
I'm a
Yeah.
pretty slow writer. I like the podcasting better because I can just say things like much quicker. I feel like when I'm writing, maybe it's like ADD, but like I start writing and then like I go back and reread a paragraph and I want to change like 75% of it. So it's a very tedious, slow process, and I don't think I'm very good at it. So at least it's slow enough where it's
So you like talking where you don't have to fact check yourself.
yeah, that's
Um, Interesting news. Donald Trump. I don't know if anybody watched the World Cup. I've been watching a lot of the World Cup, but Donald Trump just was at the award ceremony and he did this thing where like Spain gets the trophy. I think Trump handed off the trophy, but then he like walks to the side of the stage and just stands there to like obviously insert himself into the giant photo op of Spain winning. And then what's his name? Yanni Infantino or whatever, the FIFA president, like jogs over and tries to like motion him off the stage, let Spain have their moment. And Infantino's basically got to drag him off. So I don't know if it was like a dementia moment and he got lost, or if it's just a regular, everyday Trump egomaniac move where he just wants to insert himself in the photo op, even though he did nothing for the World Cup and didn't win it. But just a funny, silly situation that is probably unsurprising knowing Donald Trump.
Well, it's kind of funny too, because like I imagine it's probably hard to choreograph. Like when the president of the United States is like, "I'm going to be there on stage." It's like, well, what are you, what are,
I'm
what are
not
you
going
going
to
to
get off
do?
the stage.
And then like
Yeah.
you can't just shoo him off. Like it's kind of funny.
I made a joke, that you should have just yelled, "Hey, oh look, Ivanka's over there. She's taking her top off." Get off the stage. Or hey, there's a 12-year-old girl. Or hey, Epstein's over there, back from the dead. Just get
Yeah.
him off the stage.
Well, it's like yeah. That was one of the Epstein stories, right? Was that like someone had said there were like girls in the pool and Trump ran so fast to go outside and look at him that he ran into a glass door. Again, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
true. They haven't shown the record, so I guess I'll assume it's true until they prove it's not.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it's like I think about that. I try to articulate that sometimes about like what I do with the Halfway Post with like my what I call Dadaist satire, like satirical news. And it's just like Donald Trump calls everything fake news, and he's like the biggest liar in American politics probably ever, right? Like, has anybody just so willfully lied about dumb shit or shit that like everybody knows is a lie than Donald Trump? So, like. I just feel like it's like giving back fake news at the fake news. If he's going to proliferate so much fake news in our politics, I feel like a lot of my comedy is like, well, I'm just, the equal and opposite reaction, I guess.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on that?
Well, he's very untruthful. I saw a little clip of Obama talking, I think it was to Malcolm Gladwell, and they were talking about specifically JD Vance and how he says all this stuff about
Oh,
how like,
yeah.
if you haven't lived in West Virginia for 5 generations, like you're not a real American. It's like, well, you married an Indian woman who's like a second generation immigrant or whatever. And like, your kids aren't 100% white and your kids, don't come from a family that's been there for 5 generations
Yeah, right.
technically. But he made a good point. He said that like, the
So
fact that
basically,
they're still willing
to
to,
stay in America,
well, yeah.
For 150 years until finally they're heritage Americans.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense too, because I've heard him talk about like the Civil War and stuff and like how America changed. I mean, that goes back like years. People like at some point, everyone's got an idea of when we went from a settler society to like a white Christian society. And it's like, different people probably draw that line somewhere and it's completely arbitrary, but anyway, the point Obama was making is that the fact that like they're so hypocritical means that they're still at least trying, like, it's a measure of progress because they still kind of have to talk about something that you might consider the right answer or the good idea, even though they're
Right.
surrounded by bullshit or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Cognitive dissonance, I guess, is hard with a lot of these people.
Yeah. Speaking of the heritage aspect, I just watched Ken Burns' documentary on the Revolutionary War, which is pretty good. I recommend everybody watch it. But it's just fascinating that, like, how many soldiers in the Continental Army didn't speak English. They were, like, literally fresh off the boat from, like, Germany, Sweden. Like, New York had, like, not that long ago been a Dutch colony. The Swedes had a colony, I think in Pennsylvania, right? And
Yeah.
You had, like, all these
Near
Irish
Philadelphia.
people, Scottish people in the Appalachian and Southern colonies. And so, like, he made the point that like as much of like 10% of the Revolutionary Army was like blacks, both like slaves and free black people. There were like Native Americans fighting on both sides, just fucking over their neighbors. And like, it depended on whether you hated the British more, or the colonists. And the colonists, like the documentary goes into detail that the colonists were like pretty, like one of the reasons that the revolution sparked was because Britain was like, hey, don't go past the Appalachian Mountains. We're not trying to
Hmm.
start wars with all these Native Americans. We just did the French and Indian War, and we're in huge debt, so don't start any more wars. And all the colonists were like, fuck you. We're getting that sweet, sweet Ohio land. So that was like kind of a big reason why we started the revolution. But he made the point that just that like the Revolutionary Army was the most diverse military America would have until I think Vietnam. Just like,
Wow.
they were so desperate they would take anybody that could hold a gun and wanted to shoot some British for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. Yeah, and it shows like the level of diversity this country's always been. Because like if you watch a lot of
Yeah,
documentaries, you imagine a lot of the founding fathers and all the people live in colonial times are just a bunch of white people speaking English. And like I think it was there was a big push to potentially, and they considered it the Constitutional Convention, but make German. There were so many people who spoke German, and even in the colonies in the
right,
1780s, they genuinely considered making German like the second English and German like the official language of the United States.
right.
And then it just like never ended up happening. But it is kind of interesting that like even back then there were just tons of people who weren't speaking English, setting up
Yeah, yeah.
farm societies and little
Oh,
towns
there were
and
like
stuff.
literally like more than a dozen languages in the Continental Army, and a lot of people didn't know English at all. And it's interesting too. Apparently, a lot of those German mercenaries that came here to fight for the British, like the Hessians or whatever, a lot in America. He just created lives here. And obviously, in like the 1830s and 40s, a lot of Germans from all the instability in Germany, or like I guess, what was it, like the Holy Roman Empire or whatever it was, like
Hmm.
prior to Germany's kind of unification, like a lot of German immigrants came here, and a disproportionate amount of the Civil War fighters, like, what is that, like 80 years later, a disproportionate amount of Civil War fighters were Germans, just fresh off the boat.
Well, and another thing, I mean, even in World War One, right? Like they like passed laws basically, and then they tried to like convince German Americans that like you should really side with, even though we're with the British and kind of supporting the Allies or whatever, that like the Irish, the Germans who obviously hated the British and stuff, and were
Yeah.
at least on the German side, and Italians, like there were a lot of Italian Americans, German Americans, that there was like a big push to try to quote unquote Americanize them because they were presumably still pretty German culturally and not too happy about America going to war with Germany, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, back then in the 1800s, a lot of people didn't really consider Italians or Irish white people.
Yeah.
It's like, but when you get into the heritage thing, it's like such a moving goalpost throughout history.
Yeah.
And like basically just whatever immigrant group is biggest right now, that's the group that we hate. And they're not
Hmm.
true Americans. Like it was the Chinese before, it's the Hispanics now. In
Just
like
yeah,
50
Catholics.
years, when the Catholic, they really thought Catholics couldn't be Americans because you were loyal to the Pope, and like,
Hmm.
not, I don't know, it's just a dumb thing. But kind of going into current events, I have had a lot of satirical inspiration based off of Trump's recent electoral fraud speech that he gave, that national address. And tell me if I'm wrong, but like it seems to me that Donald Trump went on live national television and told everybody in America that he's too incompetent to have an election that's free and fair and legitimate, and that these midterms are going to be full of fraud. And then he was also going into 2020, which now, like, look at a calendar that was 6 years ago, that he's still obsessed with this. And he's basically saying that 2016, that Obama oversaw, was fair and legitimate because he won. 2024 was fair and legitimate when Biden was president. But 2020, when he was president, and now these midterms, when he's again president, are not fair and they're totally rigged. And the voting should completely be overthrown. So am I wrong that he's basically admitting to the entire country that he's incompetent and he's
Yeah,
the
he
problem?
sucks and can't run an
Yeah,
election. And
right.
and yeah, and then it's funny too, because like what's the difference between the states between 2016, 2020, 2024? Like did like I don't know, maybe this is a question I don't know the answer to, but like I it's hard to imagine that states are changing things that radically every election. Like I wonder to like what extent every 2 years, like it's every state's people who run elections are just going back to they're not going to the drawing board. They're just doing the exact same thing they did the
Yeah,
previous two
right.
years. So yeah, I don't know. And then the whole thing with like, I don't know. I guess like you could tamper with like those election counting systems, but then like, they have physical ballots and then like I'm pretty sure all the like I remember in 2020 hearing how all the like hand recounts were like those actual ballots that filled out because like I vote and I put it in a machine, but I still get a full ballot that I write in and
Yeah.
then I put it in a machine. So like presumably someone when they do the recount, they pull out that box of ballots that like people actually plug to make sure they're right. And then it's not like there's ever been like I can't think of like any notable recount election where like it really changed, except for those like, sometimes there's a Congress, election where it's really coming down to like 40 votes or something. And then you could imagine like a recount might actually do that, but certainly not like whole states and stuff for like, a presidential election. So I mean
Yeah.
it's really obviously it's a policy in search of a problem, and the problem they just made up out
Right.
of thin, you know, out of out of their asses because they're afraid they're going to
Yeah.
lose, which you'd expect anyway. Because like honestly, like at what point, like given the fundamentals of this country and how elections typically go, especially in midterms and off years, with the party in power having the White House and then getting shellacked, to quote Obama in the midterms, it's like to what extent, like if somehow Republicans like won in a lot of these districts or the House, like won't it be pretty obvious statistically to figure out what happened and what's the most likely thing? What what percentage of votes were probably tampered with? And then I imagine when they actually go look at them, they're going to see tampered ballots or there'll be ballots missing. So like, it'll be at the point when like you have the Trump administration arguing that like the statistical anomalies are good, nothing to see there.
Hmm.
And then the ones that like, that they did win. Oh, there's nothing could have happened there. So I don't know, long tirade, but yeah, to answer your question, it is kind of an admission that we can't run elections. And I've been president for 2 years, and we're fucking this up. And I've got all this threats
Yeah.
of the CIA is telling me on the daily that our elections aren't safe. So I guess I'm not going to do anything. Well, and then the other thing too is like if you're tampering with like if the accusation is that they're tampering with like election counting machines, how does having like a voter ID help with that? Because like it doesn't matter what you fucking show when you show
Yeah.
up. You could have 10 IDs, and if they're still going to manipulate the ballot counting thing, like a lot of the things in the Save Act don't even matter.
Yeah, speaking of the SAVE Act, Lisa Murkowski came out saying she's not going to vote for it, which I think puts the math like it's impossible and it can't win now. She had like, I guess, a big like presentation on how like the SAVE Act would like really screw over a lot of Alaskan voters because if you have to like go back to Juneau, the capital, to like do all the paperwork or whatever, like if you live in some of those rural communities that don't have any kind of, I guess, government buildings or
Hmm.
whatever where you could do it, like, you could have to pay like a $450 flight to the next nearest big city that would have some kind of like, I guess, government building that you could do it at. And so that's kind of good news. Although, there was a lot of commentary that it might disproportionately affect Republicans because like having to have a passport to vote would fuck over Republicans that are maybe disproportionately less interested in traveling abroad and having a passport. So that would be kind of funny if it really came down to like you have to have a passport to prove that you're a legal voter, and then all of a sudden Democrats win like a massive landslide. I think Democrats, like people pointed out, that Democrats are also more likely to keep their original name and not take their like husband's name, whereas conservatives are much more likely. So like it would screw over a bunch of women, like conservative women, if they if all of their IDs and everything have their or their birth certificate or whatever has their maiden name, and I guess they can't immediately prove they got married and changed their name or whatever. So that would be
Well, the other,
funny.
yeah, that's I've heard a lot about that. The other interesting thing too is like how it's such a policy looking for a problem is like I don't think that like local and state governments have a problem knowing where you live. Like, if you own a house, you like pay property tax every quarter. You get those
Yeah,
letters.
you're on
Like
a
none of
bunch of
those.
records.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like think of the like your property tax if you own a car in a lot of states, right? Like so like, and the other thing too is like, well, we don't know if people still live there. And it's like, well, if you don't pay your property tax, you can lose your house or, the owner would or whatever.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of like and that's just people who own houses, but people who own cars have to get it registered and stuff. So like yeah, I don't know. And then like, you have owning a home, it's like, I don't think the home mortgage like scam people have problems finding me because I get a fucking letter from them every single day. So is it a problem that we
Yeah.
don't actually know where people are and where they're
Right.
staying? Like,
Well,
and
and
then,
they, people get caught for like some, and maybe this is a algorithmic bubble kind of thing, but it seems like
mhm.
all the news I see and hear of, voter fraud ends up being like Republicans. And like right now, Ken Paxton apparently has a bunch of homes, and he's registered and voting in a different district than where his like main house is or whatever, that he got like the mortgage like tax benefit on. I think Mike Lindell is not registered to. I think he's still registered to vote in Texas, but he's running for governor of Minnesota. Some Republican candidate or someone, like, I guess he got caught like faking a bunch of signatures to get like himself or some issue on the ballot. So that's kind of interesting. Even how you people that are just forging signatures to, not even for voting, but just to get something on the ballot gets caught for fraud. So again, you're right that it's kind of like a solution searching for a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just a dumb policy, and like it's funny because like, does Trump want it to get passed? Like, wouldn't he prefer it not get passed so he can blame the fact that they don't have the Save
Yeah,
Act?
right.
Like, like just trying to do the
I
game
like
theoretic
too
in my
how he
head.
says it's what Lindsey Graham would have wanted. Do it for Lindsey Graham. I find that kind of amusing.
Yeah.
He also said that we should like end the sanction, or what is something about Israel, that he said Lindsey Graham would have wanted us to like not cut funding for Israel or something. I don't know. Interestingly, though, despite his speech, it was funny to note that Fox News is not really paying any attention to his claims. I think people noted like the next day Fox and Friends like a 3-hour show and didn't mention it once. So do you think the $750 million lawsuit payment that they had to pay is maybe making them be a little apprehensive about going down another rabbit hole of election fraud?
Yeah. Well, that's a funny thing too, because like you talked about earlier, how it's not going to help. Like on net, it would probably hurt Republicans more. So like even the logic of like doing the bill is kind of politically stupid. So like if the Republican Party wants to win an election and these potentially pretty very competitive House seats, like you don't want your vote to do anything that's going to keep like thousands of your own voters from voting. So it is
Right.
kind of funny. So like, yeah, I wonder, is it like, is Fox News worried because they'll get sued again? Or is it because they know it's actually a dumb policy and it's going to hurt Republicans more, most likely?
Yeah.
Which is like, that's that thing, is like, there's so many people who are so smart on like the individual districts and stuff and statistics of voter patterns and stuff. Like you have people calling like House seats, Senate seats, governor, like whole states in a presidential election, like 16 minutes after like the vote, like the voting polls end in those jurisdictions or whatever. So like the idea that
Mhm.
those same people don't know exactly what would happen if you like just made it harder for XYZ groups of people to vote, like they know exactly what would happen. So that's probably another reason why they're not supporting it.
Yeah, and I like the argument. A lot of people throw out things like, "Oh, you need a voter, or you need your ID to get a gym membership. You need to show your ID to get a bank loan or something like that." And it's always just funny to point out that it's like, yeah, but you don't have a constitutional right to get a bank loan from the U.S. bank. You don't have a constitutional right to be allowed to go to this like Planet Fitness in your city. Whereas the Constitution is clear that we do have a right to vote, and there's a bunch of added amendments to the Constitution that expand the right to vote and make it a more public thing. And obviously, we're a democracy. Like as citizens, we have literally the right, both in the written word of the law and the spirit of the law, to be able to vote and choose our own leaders, as is applicable in any democracy, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Um, yeah. I heard a good point on a recent podcast from Tim Miller, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. He had a funny point about how, like, everybody that works with Donald Trump and then leaves that work or gets fired or thrown out or whatever has, like, worse as bad things to say about Donald Trump. And he pointed out how you never see the opposite of somebody that, like, really hates Trump and then does some deal or gets involved with Trump in some way and then, like, comes out and says, you know what? I really underestimated him. He's really truthful. He's really a great guy. And it's just kind of funny that, like, it only goes one way. And he was kind of pointing out that as a never Trumper, like, Republican who's been basically, like, cast out of the party, right? Like, that he's been right all along, and that, like, there's a lot of people that, like, shit on, like, all the people at the Bulwark and all the people that did not go along with Trump. And, it's a good point that, that kind of coincides with like all of these senators when they lose their primary, like Tom Tillis right now, who's retiring, and John Cornyn, who did lose his primary. Like as soon as they are no longer beholden, like they're out of a job essentially, and they're in their lame duck stage of their congressional career, suddenly they start voting with the Democrats a little bit more often. Isn't that kind of ironic?
Yeah, yeah, it is pretty telling. But like that's the weirdest thing too. Like for me, like, and I'm sure that's how like the people in the bulwark feel. But like, just see, just like the how obvious it is that like Donald Trump is not like the kind of person who probably should be president, president along a variety of
Yeah,
metrics, whether it's like
right.
honesty, family values, integrity. You know, you
Even
know,
just scent, he allegedly smells like shit, has terrible breath. His body organs are probably like liquefying on the inside from
yeah.
evil hate, terrible diet, no exercise, like all of the above. So like just being around him, he like smells like shit.
Well, don't a lot of 80-year-olds kind of like start lathering on like the cologne and stuff to like cover that up. So maybe he just like doesn't do that for whatever reason. I don't know what that says about him that like he doesn't think to cover it up or doesn't know, but like yeah, it's weird. But like yeah, I just genuinely feel like, it's amazing to me that like all those people in the bulwark feel special at all because it's like you take someone who is so like patently obviously a just all around bad person. And then like so what he's like rich, he's a billionaire, like that is that the sole reason he should have been president in 2016? Like I don't know. A lot of his ideas are kind of silly. Like here's another thing, like, talk about stories going one way. It's like every story about Trump, from people who influence him basically make it, sound like, well, I just have to be the last person he talks to, or I have to keep him away from this, or we have to keep him distracted with this. It's like, it's kind of absurd.
Yeah, in his first term, there was a bunch of people that would literally just take documents off his desk, like things that he would like executive orders he was about to sign were like batshit crazy. They would literally just walk in and steal the document, and then like knowing Trump, I'm sure he just totally forgot or never knew in the first place, or his mind goes to something else stupid. So, just kind of silly and stupid.
It is kind of weird
Um,
though. I don't understand why more people don't speak out who used to work for him. Like at this point, like,
yeah.
Trump is probably going to get out of NATO. So like everyone who's not like, I don't know what saying anything would do except maybe clean your conscience a little bit. Like, having like worked for him or whatever, but
Well, it might
it
make
is
like
kind of,
Republicans actually have to like respond to it in some way when they go on CNN or some show. It would be nice
yeah,
to have people actually have to either argue for it or maybe finally hold your breath, admit that Donald Trump's wrong about something just one time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because like, what's John Kelly doing? What's Jim Mattis doing? Like, John Kelly said that Trump's like the worst person and the worst collection of like terrible personality traits he's ever met. And like, why do you have to be quiet about Donald Trump doing all these terrible things that are wrong for the country? I'm sure he probably kept a diary of just like insane, crazy shit of all
Well,
the stuff he saw.
yeah, I wonder if like on the other end of that though, like if you were John Kelly or someone who used to work in the Trump one administration, like I'm sure like you had meetings with like other members of Congress who are Republicans, and like probably deep down, or like like maybe you have like firsthand like experience talking to members of Congress, and like I imagine they probably talk about like how they know Trump is bad. So like maybe it's like, well, what's the point of speaking out? It's going to make my life harder, and the Republicans in Congress aren't going to change. Right? Like, are the Republicans suddenly going to like vote to like, hold any of Trump's cabinet officials in contempt, or like try to impeach any cabinet officials because, John Kelly said he's bad? You know what I mean? Like, would they do that if he did say, oh yeah, Trump is the worst person, blah, 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 went public?
Yeah, but I mean, even if you face some minor consequences, when we read about Nazi Germany, like there are heroes that we look up to that did or said something finally at some
yeah.
point, right? Or like threw some kind of wrench in the cogs of the machinery, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You would hope more people
We're
speak
not we're
out.
not idolizing the people who just put their head down and said, "Oh, it'd be slightly worse if I wasn't here. We'd have killed slightly more Jews and gypsies or whatever if I wasn't here."
Well, no, I mean, I just like if you were someone who's going to speak out and then like what is it going to do? I guess.
I don't know. Most of the people are rich, right? Anybody that Trump's associated with himself with are probably like, a little wealthy. he's,
Yeah.
he's not
Well,
he's not
certainly
picking a
now,
bunch of poor
thanks to
public
Kalshi.
defenders that just care about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biggest thing. It's just everyone's in on the grift, so they just want to get the money. And now Trump's like basically insider trading. We'll get to that in a minute, but real quick, I wanted to talk about Todd Blanche, who stuck his foot in his mouth after he said in his confirmation hearing he had that faux pas where he said he's Trump's lawyer, and then
Yeah.
corrected himself and said former lawyer, which is kind of funny because he's been the deputy attorney general for like a year and a half. So you would think for a year and a half he's been out of practice of saying he's Donald Trump's lawyer, but it's
Yeah.
funny that that's still maybe he accidentally told the truth there. And
Well, I
then
just like
like
the
again,
fact I love the joke about how, like, he was being asked while testifying, like, hey, did you get anything from when you talked to Ghislaine Maxwell? And he said no. It's like, why did you, the
yeah,
Assistant Attorney
right.
General of the United States, meet with someone and not get, and then, it's like, did you
Yeah, you
get a
didn't get a
lead?
single other name,
Yeah.
another lead to like
Yeah.
go investigate the
What a
biggest child
fucking
sex
waste of
trafficking ring
time.
ever.
Yeah, what a
Yeah.
waste of time. What a waste of like, what's funny is like that's one of the most important jobs in this country too. Like, the Fed, the Federal Reserve members, the Attorney General. Like, there's probably not that like, it's we're not talking about the Department of Transportation head, which is important too, but like it's or like, the person who leads NOAA or like, the local
Yeah.
chapter of like the Department of Interior and the parks people. You know what I mean? And it's like there are so few jobs that are like super important, like Attorney General, Secretary of Defense, the Fed, and then like, yeah, I don't know. It's like to the point we were talking about earlier. It's like, well, like what are people speaking out going to do? Like if everyone already knows, like people like Hegseth is probably a little
Well,
ahead of his
no, it's
skis.
but don't you have just personal integrity for yourself? Don't you want to be on one side of history rather than the other?
No, I would, yeah, yeah. Like, but like, I guess the
They're all
point
just
is like,
cowards. I don't have any sympathy for them. Like you're just quiet because your life's easier and you can stay on the board of some dumb company with some bullshit job because you're keeping quiet and you just did the right things to the right people and now you can just coast the rest of your life grifting off of the kind of revolving door between like politics and lobbying and dumb board jobs where you're basically just rewarded for your silence and complicity
yeah, yeah, and
and the
I've
service
seen
of,
that
I
a
guess,
lot.
ultimately
Yeah,
tax cuts for the rich.
yeah.
There was another thing, speaking about like the fraud. Um, let's see, the $1.76 billion IRS settlement that Trump did came up in the confirmation hearing of Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche is saying that it is like basically over and not going anywhere. But John Cornyn, interestingly, has been a little bit of a wrench in the works, where he's been pointing out that the wording of the agreement says that it cannot, like specifically the part where basically Trump and all of his kids can like never be investigated or audited ever again, that like that can't be undone unless it's in writing. That's like within the wording and verbiage of the contract. And John Cornyn actually was a judge before becoming a senator. So interesting that this is important to him, that like, this is he was basically pointing out that you can just sue later. Like if they say it's dead now, in another year, they can just do a lawsuit and say, actually, the wording of this says we have to have it written in writing that the IRS settlement is dead or it's not dead. So it'll be interesting. Do you think John Cornyn, I mean, now that he is a lame duck senator and is kind of out of politics and lost his primary, he's kind of got like nothing left to lose. So do you think he will commit to not voting for Todd Blanche or just, be a party line vote?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I hope so. Like, as we're getting close to November and he's until what, January or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. To the point though, like about the what is it, the $1.7 billion fund or whatever, like I find it preposterous that that's like, how is that even a legal remedy? Like you're just making up legal remedies that don't exist in law. Like, for
Well,
example,
plus
like
he's got no standing because he sued the IRS, essentially his own administration, and then he's
mhm.
settling with his own administration. So people are pointing out that like who's really like at a loss here? How does he have standing to basically sue and then settle with
Yeah.
himself? You know,
Well, I
fucking
mean, like
weird.
imagine if you were like the mayor of a city and then like you got caught shoplifting, and then you're like, fuck that, I didn't do that. And then you basically sue your city, and then you're like, you make a sweetheart deal with like the attorney, the whatever district attorney general for your city or whatever. And then like you just say, well, I can never be investigating for shoplifting, chocolate candies from the
Yeah,
local,
right.
grocery store. And it's like hands off. And it's like, that's not a legal restitution for a crime that like you got like legally, I don't know,
Yeah,
investigated for. It's absurd. Like that's another, like,
yeah.
yeah, like well, that's another thing. It's like, who is standing? Like, well, if the Trump family can't ever get investigated again for anything related to like financial crimes, like that makes no sense.
Yeah, immunity. Yeah, that doesn't work. Even like even the stupidly, what do they call it? The kind of like I forget what word, but basically where the presidential pardon power is like has no equal and nothing can subvert the pardon. And yeah, this is a weird settlement where it's like immunity going forward. It's not just a pardon for all the crimes in the past.
Yeah.
You have immunity in perpetuity.
Well, that's another
Now,
funny thing is I don't know if you've ever heard this, but like I heard a funny, interesting take was that like the pardon power comes from like English law, obviously, because that's like the power to
the
pardon
king.
was like with like kings and stuff,
Yeah, because the
and it
king would condemn people to death, and then
yeah
only the king could,
yeah
make it not have to die
this is not
or
like
be
a
hung or
legal
quartered.
yeah this is not a legal argument that I think would go anywhere, but technically they were saying that like the pardon power, like if you think about it historically, only applied to so many types of crimes because like they only
Right.
really thought about specific types of
Just
crimes
like the
like
death penalty
murdering
was only
people.
applied to certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like, getting mad that you're being investigated for like financial crimes and stuff, like it I don't know. Again, the
Can you
president's
imagine him
power is
pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell? And it's like, yeah, the power of the pardon applies to running like a massive sex trafficking ring. Like
yeah.
that's just fucking stupid.
Well, it's like the whole point of like having, political power vested in anyone is that they should use it responsibly and not just try to do it. Like, I mean, that's like the whole thing. It's like the fact that she's like at the Club Fed or whatever, and it's like that is like so against like the rules. Like, why would you take someone who's like literally the biggest sex crimes offender in the fucking planet right now, and then like they're not even in a real jail? Like that
Yeah,
makes no sense.
possibly all of human history. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as we
Yeah.
know.
And it's funny because that obviously got brought up in Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing, and he basically his excuse was that like there were threats made against her. And it's like, yeah, okay, so every gangbanger in prison has a threat against them. They get to go to like what it was essentially like a Boy Scout camp where you can get a puppy, you get unlimited internet time or whatever the fuck Ghislaine Maxwell's getting. Like just
Yeah.
insane.
No, it's absurd. And like that's
Every
like
gang member.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's
That's kind of
good.
them. Tom Tillis is also being a little squishy on Todd Blanche. He said that he would be an automatic no unless Todd Blanche finally met with the Epstein victims or some of them, and I guess that finally did
Just
happen.
met
And
with
then
them.
yeah, just had a talk, and then they did that,
This
and
guy's
then
been
so
Trump's lawyer for years. You'd think like meeting with a victim's gonna like move him to like find Jesus or something, and like
yeah, right.
it's
Well,
ridiculous.
it didn't. Spoiler alert: it didn't because he met with those victims, and then the victims were really pissed off that like he was not like taking any accountability for anything. So it went about as well as you'd expect. But he met. So I wonder if like Tom Tillis will just vote the party line. He's another person who's got nothing left to lose because he's retiring, and he's constantly talking shit about like how terrible Congress is and how Donald Trump's kind of not the right man for the job, obviously, but pretty pathetic if he votes to confirm. It really would be a like when Nixon happened and all of the crimes that Nixon did, and then his DOJ that helped him like back up or cover up the Watergate scandal and everything like that. Like the amount of laws that we are breaking right now that were passed after that relatively relatively like what's the word? Like relatively not that big of crimes compared to what Trump's doing with his DOJ.
Yeah, they like
It's just
covered up just a
amazing.
couple of things. They're just like, yeah, we don't want to, we just cover up this little
Yeah.
bit of news. We don't want to get in trouble, and it's like it is completely benign. Like the idea that like the president should be making billions of dollars and stuff. Like, I mean, it's absurd. I
Yeah.
mean, not to mention like the
Well, and the
emoluments
Epstein
clause in the
cover up, the cover up of
Constitution.
Yeah, the Epstein cover-up's obviously way bigger than just a couple like burglars getting into the building to try to try to like I got what were they trying to do? Like wiretap, I guess, the Democratic, field
They were
office or
stealing
whatever,
stuff. Yeah, they were in a
or the
wiretap, and then
headquarters.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it was bad because like the CIA was directly involved. But like, it's not like every department under Trump isn't doing stuff that's like abetting, all kinds of bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
the Federal Trade Commission, the SEC, like the SEC is fucking sleep at the wheel. Like, you have all these people making all these. So doing this MBA program, like my teacher was talking about how he worked for a bank in Canada, and he said like after big trades and big mergers and acquisitions, like people like government regulators would come to him and be like, "Hey, do you think like there's any chance that this person knew this person because that person made a lot of fucking money? So is there any chance they fucking talk?" And it was
Uh,
like, that's like just little like mergers and acquisitions and businesses. And it's like, you don't think like the entire Trump department, like administration is talking. It's like the fucking guy on the teleprompters on Kalshi making bets on what
yeah,
words are going to be shown. Like, it's so absurd. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're like an executive at some small company and you just told a friend that like, hey, we're going public or planning an IPO, there's an announcement, like there are going to be regulators looking into you, but then you have literal people betting on like when bombs are going to drop on another
yeah,
country, and then crickets from the
yeah.
SEC.
And
It's
the
absurd.
teleprompter guy is hilarious because what is he scrolling down the teleprompter with his phone in his other hand, like fuck, fuck, fuck. He's rambling. He didn't say this bit. And then does the teleprompter guy would like drop the phone real quick, edit the speech, like go down like two lines further and edit the speech to try to get the word that he just put, like
Yeah.
a 10 grand bet on. Just insane.
Well, I love there were a lot of people joking that like the guy reported like $100,000 in earnings from Kalshi or whatever. And it's like, how fucking stupid and incompetent are you that you literally know what the president's going to say? You've only made $100,000. You should be like leveraging your mortgage and your house on that
Yeah.
trade. Like you only made
Well,
100K in a
yeah.
year.
But it's funny, somebody was mentioning that like that rank in the government is like really, really high, like basically like a deputy advisor or something that's like really high income by itself. And like the like I guess the security level or whatever of the role,
I
you're
guess.
you're literally changing the world based on what Trump says. But yeah, but everything's a grift. It doesn't matter how much money you can make in the government or how rich you already are.
Well, the
Might as
other
well grift
bullshit
on
now.
Kalshi.
The other bullshit is like having Truth Social basically have like a pay to play scheme where you have to pay for Truth Social to get Trump's like tweets. And they're
Yeah.
saying that like rather than the Federal Reserve or like government like social media accounts, we're going to put all news that may make or break trades on the stock market on Truth Social. So like every trader who wants to make money and leverage information like second to second or minute to minute's got to pay Trump. Like, how is
Yeah.
that like? That's like such
Right.
bullshit. Like the
It's
corruption.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
I mean,
is
it's
this
like,
is where like somebody like Ted Kennedy, like if we had like a legit Congress, somebody like Ted Kennedy would have like literally stopped everything in Congress and put on like a rider on literally every fucking bill. This is getting no funding until this stops immediately, right? And it's like just Democrats just like why is this not something for the Democrats to start filibustering in the Senate and say we are doing nothing until that $1.76 billion fund is dead, until we stop putting people in concentration camps. Like nothing is happening in the government until this like blatantly unconstitutional, illegal, immoral, all this stuff stops, right? Like, why
yep.
are they not doing that? Isn't it past time to just literally, like, the government's not doing anything anyway? What's Congress passing? The one thing, the housing bill, that actually was a good thing. Trump starts threatening, I guess he didn't threaten to veto it, but he wasn't going to sign it and delayed it like 10 days or whatever unnecessarily just to, bitch about the SAVE Act not getting passed. But it's just all a dumpster fire. But it's funny, you mentioned mergers and acquisitions, and then the other appointee going on right now is the director of national intelligence to replace Tulsi Gabbard. So this guy, Jay Clayton, who, reminder, has no real national intelligence experience whatsoever. He was like a lawyer for
Of course.
mergers
Yeah.
and acquisitions. And then he became, let's see, he was the Securities and Exchange Commission chair in 2017 in the first term of Trump. And then he became acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. So none of those are necessarily national security stuff or intelligence. But like, I guess it's still a step up because like unlike Tulsi Gabbard, this Clayton guy wasn't in a cult and apparently isn't
Yeah.
getting like direct orders from a cult leader on what to say and what to do, like it got reported that Tulsi Gabbard was doing. But like he had a big viral moment with John Ossoff, who like asked him, just the simplest question in the world, who won the election in
Yeah.
2020, and then he just can't answer. And then John Ossoff had a very viral moment saying, like, "Aren't you humiliated that you can't? You're trying to become the director of national intelligence, and you can't be forthright and honest just about who won the 2020 election." And like the theater of it is so absurd. And
It
I
is
wonder
theater.
about this. Yeah, and I wonder about it because he says, "I'm not doing this with you." Basically, everyone knows why he can't say it, but like, will Donald Trump really pull his nomination if he just says Biden won, whatever, and then just go on to the next question? Will Donald Trump really embarrass himself by pulling his own nomination just because he says like one offhand remark that, yeah, Joe Biden won more votes and won more electoral college votes and became the president, was actually elected? Would Trump
Yeah, I
do
mean,
that, do you think?
I mean, if I were in that guy's shoes, I would just say it and like dare Trump to like pull it, right? like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, that goes back to like, what are you willing, what, what, what level near the crawl space at rock bottom are you willing to go to
Yeah,
like curl
right.
up and like
Yeah,
let your soul die for a job for
right.
this administration? Like, yeah, especially like, if you like, if Democrats are like, imagine taking a job right now in the Trump administration, and if like November, like Democrats get at least control of the House, like, do you like, is the job that good where you want to spend the next 2 years just sitting in congressional committee hearings, like being investigated? Like, is that worth the job to have on your resume that like for 18 months or something, you were the assistant, blah, 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 deputy, blah, blah, blah. Like, I wouldn't want that job. But again, like,
Well, for all of them, it is worth it. You get that sweet money. I guess it's technically like a
yeah.
job promotion for a lot of these people as you rise up the ranks and things like that. But yeah, it's like but it's, like your kids, your grandkids are going to watch that video of you just being like a coward little bitch. So I guess it's worth it to them.
I mean, it's like
Uh,
DNI too. So like, it's just national intelligence. So like, your probably day-to-day job's not going to be like overly political, but like, I think you can imagine it getting a little
Well,
political in
no,
I
your
think
job.
6
Well, it's
months.
like you take in all the info that isn't
Yeah.
political, and then you're the guy who has to make
Politicize
it
it.
political because Donald Trump has to tell you, hey, don't have Putin in there, don't have Russia in there, don't have Israel in there, don't have anything I don't like in there. Because like you have to imagine, like the people that assemble all the information are pretty sober, like military and intelligence people that are probably like like total Boy Scout type people that have like
Yeah.
you never told a lie in their life, hopefully, right? And they're just like completely by the book and have no like political partisan angle whatsoever. And then you have to be the guy that takes that info and then asks them kindly, hey, can you make it look like Russia isn't trying to intervene in our elections to fuck over
Yeah.
Democrats because Putin knows Democrats will actually stand up for national security interests of America? Um, Let's see. Some of the other corruption, Donald Trump's kids are making a lot of money in contracts. They're on the board of a
Surprise.
bunch of like contracting companies with the military for like drones and shit. What do you think about that?
I think it's shameful. I think it's corrupt and bad. Like the fact that like they have companies that are like going to get government contracts, put like the Trump kids on the board, and then they're going
Yeah.
to get our taxpayer money. So it like balloons like the share price when they go public or if they are public. And it's like, then, okay, so they get a shitload of free money just for being on the board. And then they get contracts because they're on the board. Like, yeah, it is shameful. And I hope Democrats spend some time going through that. But like, I mean, think of like, it's, I don't even know what to say. It's so frustrating. Like, and all these people are like, oh, well, they're business people too. Look how much money they made. Like, in 10 years when Donald Trump
It's
Jr.
like
is running for
their
president.
entire lives are nepotism. Like no, they're businessmen. No, they're not. They're nepo little babies. They're like little idiots that don't have any talent whatsoever. They're just riding on their name.
Yeah. And it's
Like
like,
is
it's
Taylor
always worth
Trump
saying too,
adding
like,
anything to drone tech?
yeah. Well, it always helps to remind people that like they were in like luxury real estate and the entire market of luxury overpriced real estate is laundered money. So like fucking
Yeah.
geniuses running money
Right.
laundering schemes, like, and then we did our due diligence. Yeah, we didn't look
In
we didn't look,
Azerbaijan.
yeah, we didn't look past the shell company, but we did our due diligence.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure I did not email directly with that bad guy who's sanctioned by 40 countries or whatever in Europe.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
This is
What a
something that
fucking joke. Like the whole due diligence thing anyway. Like, the fact that like, oh, here's our here's our $10 million property we're selling for 35 million, and it gets bought for 55. And it's like, that's that's on the up and up, I'm sure. Like, what
Yeah,
due diligence could you
right.
possibly do?
Yeah.
Plus, like, look at the incentives too. Why would you do due diligence on that? Other than the fact that like you're supposed to under law, but
Yeah. Well,
again, the
plus Trump
SEC
is
is asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. And Trump's whole career, he's been accused of like money laundering for like Russian nationals, Turkish nationals. Like Qatar just gave him a $400 million jet for free.
Which they
Like
wanted to get rid of anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's so
Which
funny.
is the dumbest thing. It's like not only is it a brazen bribe, it's like a dumb bribe that only Trump is stupid enough to want. It's like a giant jet that's too big to land at most, like a lot of airports. And it's like so costly because it's so big to maintain and keep running. Like they were literally trying to like just fire sale it to anybody. And they
Yeah.
gave it to Trump for free for a bribe. And he thinks he's he got a great deal off. They're just so enamored with his deal making strength of that.
Talking about
But
I was gonna say,
but
bringing up all this like stupid, like economic, like financial bullshit. Like, have you been following SpaceX and its stock
oh
price and
yeah,
it's going down?
it's down like 35% or something right
Yeah,
now. So
literally.
basically, everyone who bought in after it went public has lost money.
Yeah. Well, here's another funny thing is like, and I find this fascinating, like hearing stories about like the .com bubble and like all those internet companies. And someone pulled out some research and they found that like literally 98% of like internet companies going into the bubble had buy ratings from like Wall Street analysts, and like all of them lost all their fucking money. And so it's like only 2% of internet companies before the .com bubble had sell ratings. And it's like the same stuff. Like you hear all these like Wall Street analysts saying that like, SpaceX is worth $5 trillion by 2035. You're like, $5 trillion.
Yeah,
Like it's going to be like a
right.
sixth of the entire US GDP. And then they were saying, oh, what was it? It's like analysts doing like all this stuff like, how SpaceX is going to be worth like 500 times earnings. It's like, so let me get this straight. It's going to take me, you think it's worth so much in the future that like, if I buy it right now, the earnings will take 500 years to accumulate based on today's revenue.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just so absurd. But then like, it's the other thing too, is like, well, they're just going to get government contracts because if you're running like a space company, who's your market? It's like government.
Yeah.
So you're just going to get like, yeah. And the other thing too is like, well, I don't know. I'm going on a tangent, but I think it's so funny. Like the AI companies, like they're like, will they, won't they IPO? And it's like now they're having trouble finding the money to get the valuations they want. And it's like all bullshit anyway, because like they're slowly leaking out like the internal like economics of these companies. And they're like, I think it was ChatGPT, OpenAI, something like made like $17 billion, but spent like 39. So like, the idea that there's going to be like
I think they spent probably way more. I thought they spent
Yeah.
more like 100 billion or something, or I don't know, or I don't
well,
know.
the
It's
the
way
leaked,
more for
yeah, the
sure.
leaked accounting or whatever showed that like, they're well, they have revenue. Congrats. You
Yeah,
don't really have a lot of, you have like
yeah.
negative 20 billion profit or whatever. But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I
Elon
think
Musk
all
got a
this
funny
stuff is
line.
it's just like society as a whole is just bullshit right now, from our
Yeah.
politics and companies. Like,
It's a
yeah.
giant house of cards. But Elon had a funny line where he was basically saying that SpaceX will be worth more than all of Earth combined. It's like, yeah, that's a great attitude to have. Like your dumb little rocket company is more important than Earth and all the people on Earth, right? Like all the people on the planet. But
Well, what's really funny
um,
too is like they do these calculations based on like what they call the weighted cost of capital, which I won't get into, but it's basically like what is the growth, like what do you think your cost of capital is minus like your growth rate you'll think you'll get. And then companies will do this thing with like, because like the long-term GDP growth of this country is like 2%. So if like you make your growth rate above that, like, it's just a matter of time until you're worth more than the entire US economy. And it just reminds me like the meme, like when they talk about how big North America is like geographically, and they'll have like the whole world or whatever, or like North America with all the other continents, and North America is inside North America. And it's like this company is so big, it's worth the entire GDP of the United States, even though it's one company in the United States. It's ridiculous.
yeah. Trump made $2 billion in crypto profits this year, which is funny. I just want to point out that he's pump and dumping his own fans and supporters.
It's
And
down
like, not
98%.
only Yeah, and not only is he pump and dumping, but he takes a cut from like every transaction. I was like, he's just really robbing like anybody that believes in him. And it was just reported that his kids, what is it like the little fund, the Trump funds or whatever that he started for children, that's now in the red and losing money. It's like they're like all these investors are essentially pump and dumping like literal children from this government policy.
How are they
So
pumping and dumping though?
that's
Isn't it
awesome.
just based? Isn't it kind of like a
No, because it's
retirement
just all
account?
in the market, and now the value is
Yeah.
going down, and it's losing money. So all like the money from these, I guess, like savings funds for children are like losing money, and the value is being extracted out. I guess from all the different vultures out there,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, that'll be like
Um,
classic Trump, like given his business record, the fact that you'll give every kid born in America this year $1,000, and at the end of the year, it's worth like 950.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And in
Thanks.
5 years, it's like completely worthless.
Meanwhile, it's all our
uh,
fucking money. He just lost like five, and that's another
yeah,
thing. I mean, whatever. The stock market will grow over time. So, like, I think in 18 years, when the kids born this year are going to college, they'll be okay and have some money. But it is kind of funny in the interim.
yeah. This might be close to your heart. Pete Hegseth's new testosterone policy in the military. You're over 30, so this would affect you if you're still in the Navy. But what do you think about that? And is it gender affirming care that they're really obsessed about hating?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's kind of like the diet thing. Like people like I need to drink like, 10 gallons of water a day. And it's like, why don't you just drink water when you're thirsty? Because I'm pretty sure your body tells you when you're thirsty. But like testosterone, like is this another like is this like a real problem? Like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of like older military people, like they seem fine. Like, they have gray hair
Yeah,
like most older people. They probably slow down. They probably can't run a
yeah,
6-minute mile and a half anymore, but that's to be expected. And then it's like, do we know what the long term consequence? I mean, it's like you go on YouTube and you get like the YouTube ads for like random medicine for men or whatever, and you just start taking it all. Like, is that going to solve your problem? Is that going to make you age gracefully? Like all your YouTube medicines, like,
yeah. All
yeah,
your
just
peptides and all your
testosterone, like,
shit.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny because like on the one hand, it's like, okay, well, if it's like a real problem and like, the military wants people to be in shape, but then like it's also kind of just funny because it's a little like like I don't know, it seems like a little strange when you're so obsessed with men's like T levels or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, do you think it's a clue that Pete Hegseth himself has low testosterone and he's very, very worried about it? Now he's just making it the entire military's problem to deal with too.
Yeah, he takes like the T pills or whatever and now wants other people because no one will shame him or whatever if thousands of
Yeah,
people have
right.
to do it.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, it is kind of silly.
Yeah. And it's silly too because like with drone warfare now, right? Like Ukraine just like made kind of world news where they just did like an all drone amphibious landing where like the landing craft was a drone, like dropping off other drone thing, like land-based drones. So like to me, it just seems like the wars of the future will just be like the basement dwelling nerds that play video games all day. It'll be like pale skinned people drinking Monster energy drinks all day, just playing drone video games essentially to like fight wars of the future. If it's not even just AI and no people have to be involved whatsoever, right? So like this
Yeah.
idea that we need these like massive roid rage people, like isn't it just aren't you just making all of our soldiers bigger targets for the drones dropping grenades overhead, right? If they're like just literally bigger and roid rage out. And
Well,
then
and you can also see like the downfall of a society, right? Like if you just imagine from like a history book perspective, and it's like when did the American military get weak? Is it because like some soldiers wrote poetry, or is it when you told all women they can't serve, and you told black people fuck off, and you told Sikh people fuck off, and then you told gay people fuck off, and it's like suddenly you're a majority minority country, right? And then suddenly like our military force is like one, eligible soldiers are one half of 45% of the population. You're like, wow, cool. I
yeah.
don't know.
I've been having a lot of jokes because obviously, if you take too much testosterone, it can like really fuck with you and even develop like breast tissue. So it would be funny if
Really?
Pete
Breast
Hegs,
tissue?
yeah, yeah, breast tissue. Like if
Hmm.
if your hormones are like all out of whack, like some people that just sort of like hardcore, like taking steroids and all that shit and testosterone, they can develop breasts. So it would be funny if Pete Hegseth accidentally turned the entire U.S. military into trans
Trans.
women. Yeah. um, let's see.
The tyranny of good
And
intentions, right?
yeah, right. Um, Let's see. Iran is going nowhere, obviously, right now. Two troops just died. We had another troop, a third troop die, I think today or yesterday in Iraq, I guess. Iran pulled off some kind of like drone attack there or something. And so, we really have no goals anymore at all, except to just return to the status quo that existed prior to this war, where we open up the Strait of Hormuz and just pretend this war never happened and, beg Iran to stop charging
Well, it's like
fees to get through the strait now.
it's genius military strategy. Like, I'm not like, Clausewitz or anything, but, keep bombing your enemy and then give them like 3 weeks to like get all their missiles out of the rubble and drones so they can shoot again. It's like, that's not really smart. Not to
Right.
mention, we're still at the point of like the administration trying to figure out the problem of like, oh yeah, they can close the strait whenever the fuck they want.
Yeah. I have this idea that, like Congress doesn't want to vote for this. They don't even want to have any vote whatsoever on Iran. And they're basically just keep kicking the can down the road and using the excuse of like, Trump's negotiating peace now. Let's not get in the way. And even
Is
Rand
he?
Paul used that as an excuse, like despite his libertarian bona fides.
I got a
But I
question
just
for
wanted to,
you. I got
yeah.
a quick question for you. If you are quote unquote the best negotiator, how many days is too much for a negotiation?
Well, it's been a year and a half since he said on day one he'd stop the war in Ukraine.
Yeah,
That's still ongoing.
that's true.
But I wanted to point out like some free advice for all of our politicians that like if you're so afraid to have any responsibility for any war that you won't vote on anything, like the way to get around that is to have mass buy-in by the entire world and have the United Nations all get on the same page and share the cost and all share on the same share the same goals and dreams for like the outcome and get everybody on board, because then you will not be personally to blame. If everybody gets involved and everybody's on the same page, it's not just you getting blamed if you vote for it, right? So I just wanted to point that out. But of course, our Congress are feckless cowards that have no balls at all to do anything legitimate or serious, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of embarrassing our country quite a bit. Like, I mean, the fact that like you can't compel a country like Iran to do what you want, the fact that they can do things like we talked about this before, but the loss of deterrent value alone is like terrible. It's like,
Yeah.
that alone for a Congress member would have been worth its weight in gold. Maybe not have all of our like bases get hit because that, makes us look bad. The fact that like we can't keep the strait open. And then again, this goes back to there's a lot of people in this country who think bombing things solve things. And like, again, I'm not Clausewitz, but like war is politics by other means. So like, is there a political solution to this? Like, well, bombing hasn't, given us a political solution yet. So, is more bombing, the what we need? Is this like Vietnam, where if we bomb Iran for 4 more years, like, is that going to bring them to the table? And then you're going to get to a point where like, well, we need to look strong. So we have to go out on a hard note. So we're going to waste more missiles and more bombs, like just to try to appear like we're winning at the
And kill a
moment
bunch
and
of
stuff.
civilians.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Congress being kind of full of feckless cowards, I entered into AI if Mike Johnson was the worst speaker ever. A couple of days ago, I was curious about that. And I just wanted to point out a couple other speakers that AI suggested maybe are worse or in the running of terrible speakers. So there was a guy, Theodore Pomeroy. He's often cited as one of the worst because he served only one day, March 3rd, 1869. So he was considered a caretaker speaker after Schuyler Colfax resigned. He exercised essentially no legislative leadership whatsoever because it was one day. There's a guy, Frederick H. Gillett, or Gillette, I don't know, who knows. Gillette presided during the era after the 1910 revolt against Speaker Joseph Cannon, who was previous, who had sharply reduced the speaker's formal powers. Historians generally view Gillette as less influential than dominant speakers before and after him. Kind of a reminder that back in like 1910, Congress, didn't really do a whole lot back then. They had like long breaks. It still kind of took a long time to travel even then, but via train, especially if you were like out in California or whatever. There was a guy, William Bankhead, in the 40s. Bankhead's frequently described as pretty weak because while President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, was president there, they had pretty powerful committee chairs it kind of dominated the legislative decision-making process, which of course now committee chairs have almost no power because going back several speakers now, committees don't really do anything and everything is totally decided by the speaker setting the schedule and stuff on what gets brought up for a vote. And that's been a frequent problem for Republican speakers, especially because conservatives really want to go
They don't
back
want
to
to do
that
anything.
style. Yeah. And then John Boehner was pretty weak, a lot of internal rebellion, and he ultimately kind of got kicked out and had to retire. And then Paul Ryan didn't do a whole lot and kind of had the same problems as Boehner, not being able to control the Freedom Caucus. It kind of turned into like a monster. They got away from them and took over the Tea Party and Freedom Caucus. Although Paul Ryan, I guess, to his credit, did do the 2017 tax bill, but any good liberal would probably argue that was a very shitty thing that really fucked the country in a lot of ways. So
wasn't that
I
his
don't know.
whole dream, though?
Yeah, probably.
Ayn Rand philosophy to put that in our tax bill. Yeah.
But out of all of those that I just mentioned, how do you think Mike Johnson kind of compares? He is kind of like
isn't
like a
everyone
nobody.
associated?
He's not really what?
Isn't like literally everyone associated with this administration kind of like painted? like what could you possibly point to? Like all these people, even in like their cabinet
Well, they're literally
officials
afraid to do anything. They can't go out on a limb and, get a mean tweet from Trump. Trump kind of sets the agenda, but he's so stupid and inconsistent that it's impossible to have any kind of like logical consistency yourself because Trump will just, you'll be arguing something for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then Trump will just flip on a dime because one person said something to him on the golf course or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's, I mean, I don't see an agenda right now. Do you? Like, I guess like the Republicans voted with Democrats for this like housing bill or whatever, and I guess it'll go to law at some point because Trump's not going to sign it. But like, what's the agenda? I
think it was
only
like 10 days or something. I think it's becoming law now.
Yeah. So like, I literally don't know. I don't see or hear of an agenda except the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, which is not going to get passed, hopefully. So they're one agenda item.
No, I think the House passed it, but I think Lisa Murkowski was the last like kind of squishy vote, and she just said she wasn't going to.
So that's their agenda going into the election. So I think there's probably going to be nothing. Aren't they going to go on break soon for their like August break
for all of August
season? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I haven't heard anything about a reconciliation bill, and that's like the one thing that Congress these days can actually do because it's the one thing that is immune from the filibuster because of arcane weird rules that have been kind of taken to the extreme because of the insane filibuster rule that they don't want to kill. Just kind of weird. But speaking of congressional dysfunction, is Mitch McConnell alive? How do you feel on the Mitch McConnell mystery that's going on?
Well, it's funny you mention that because I had a long 20-minute conversation with him this morning about foreign policy. So I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. Did he mention today the Iran war?
Yeah.
Very cogent about all that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to point out that the two photos that have been released, he's wearing the same shirt. So like, did the stroke just like destroy his brain and he's got like no mental faculties whatsoever? And like all they can do is just dress him up in the same shirt that's just in the hospital with him or whatever.
I just think it's absurd. Like the people who have power, like we were talking about this like via text, but like the fact that like, why doesn't the governor of Kentucky say, I'm fucking replacing him right now until someone proves to me he's fucking alive. I want to talk to him on the phone, video conference right now. And it's just like, why not just do that? Just make them like, I don't know, fucking try to tell the truth or whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they should do a video. I am very much supporting Bashir just calling an election and saying, all right, if Mitch McConnell's alive, let's see him come to the debate stage of our new election or whatever. So I was actually looking this up. I think that they're doing it because of that deadline where like it's like August 2nd or 3rd, where if he dies before then, they have to have a snap election, where if he dies after that, it'll just be vacant until the next election or whatever. Now, it's a little squishy because Kentucky Republicans have fucked over the replacement if a senator dies, like the state constitutional laws about that. And so I looked it up. There in 2021, Republicans passed a bill that required the governor. This was when Bashir first won. So when a Democrat won, suddenly they changed the rules where the party of the dead senator gets to pick a short list of 3 candidates, and from that short list, the opposite party governor, in this case, gets to choose one of those 3 pre-selected candidates
That's
from
bullshit.
the opposite party, which
Yeah.
is bullshit. And then in 2024, they changed it again, which completely eliminated the governor's power to appoint a temporary replacement for a vacancy. Instead, if a Senate seat opens, a special election must be held, leaving the seat vacant until a winner is certified. So the governor has no power whatsoever to just pick a replacement. Now, there's a few other states that do that. So it's not totally like, in terms of like the
Kentucky
U.S.
only.
constitutional illegal, it's not just Kentucky. However, it's obviously a bullshit thing that the Republicans did because a Democrat got won, and they were obviously worried about Mitch McConnell's health. But I totally think that, I think Bashir should don't even do the election route. I think Bashir should just say, "Fuck that! I'm picking a Democrat. He's going to Congress right now." I don't know what power. This would get
Well,
a
if it's
little
against a
fanciful.
state law, you can't do that.
No, but I'm saying take it to the court. I'm saying, it's a losing battle. I'm sure the Kentucky Supreme Court is full of crazy Republicans who will only vote the partisan line and find whatever rationale they get there, right? But I'm saying, why not just waste months going down that fight? Because this is clearly, if not against the letter of the law, it's clearly against the spirit of the law. And why not? Why not lose that battle? Again, it's all of our officials in this Trump era are such cowards that they don't want to have the fight. Again, go back to Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy, all the Kennedys, really, none of them were afraid of losing a fight because the fight was important. And this would be something, and just delay it and, have it be in the news for months going into the election. Maybe it'll gin up a lot of support for the actual general election in November. But just have the battle. Even if you lose it, make it a giant thing. And, who knows? I don't know. Maybe the wild card Supreme Court will vote for it. But either way, that seat will be vacant. And then right now, with the majorities in the House and Senate being so slim, not having a Kentucky vote for a while would probably be a good thing for Democrats. Just tactically, it's good politics, right?
Yeah. But again, Republicans don't have an agenda, so it's not like they're going to be voting on it. But I see your point.
Well, it'd be one less vote on a reconciliation thing. It'd be one less vote for all of the amendments that are going to get jammed into it, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. How are you doing on time? Are you good on time?
Yeah, I got 10 minutes.
Okay. I have this thought that, democratic socialism is kind of a big thing right now because you're getting some big DSA victories. Obviously, Mamdani, the Michigan Senate race is now a 2-way race between the kind of centrist candidate. I didn't write down her name. I forgot her name. But then the other guy, I forgot his name too. Do you know the Senate candidates? Something Saul.
Get it a Somali guy who's running.
I don't think it's Somali, but yeah, he's Muslim. But beside that, there's a lot of kind of internal fighting right now in the Democratic Party about whether democratic socialism or moderate. And again, it's the same thing that we Democrats do every single election, where socialists are considered too out of step and they're going to lose. And then socialists say the moderate is just too much of a squishy and going to lose. And then the moderate usually wins. And then the Democrats lose the race. The DSA wing of the party is just getting more and more pissed.
Abdul El-Sayed. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Yeah. Well, I'll
say the fact check.
What I'll say is I'm not worried about it at all. And I think everyone should be able to vote whoever they want. And if New York City is fucking different than Ohio, Democrats in Ohio. So yeah, they have different fucking ideas. They should vote. And then, the flip side of that is I hope that when these super liberal people who think they should abolish the police go to Congress, that there's a Democrat who will look them in the eye and say, I don't give a fuck what you think. And if you don't shut the fuck up, I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z. And I would just love people to exercise power in Congress, because Congress is the most important branch. And if Congress doesn't play its role constitutionally, you have a president who just does whatever the fuck they want. And normally they have stupid ideas. At least this one does. So I don't know. What's your take on that? Have wackos in Congress, but have the Speaker of the House A, last longer than a day than that other guy, and two, actually use their power. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that because, like every, and all of our founders warned against parties. They didn't want that to happen. And for like much of the founding and the construction of the Constitution, they just thought every state would have its own interests and every state would be kind of a check and balance on the other states
And every
anyway.
member of Congress would like have a pair.
Yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
want to do something. Like, where are these members of Congress who want to run for president themselves? Like, are they like, it's kind of funny. Like, members of Congress, you have people like, think of Ted Cruz who's going to run again. Like, Rand Paul would run again. There's a lot of members of Congress who, would run for president and have run for president. And it's just like, you're just going to like, I don't know, like run in someone else's coattails and like just pray that like whoever's at the top of the ticket the election before doesn't say bad things about you. Like where, like, I don't know, the whole point. It's funny because like the Federalist Papers are all about how ambition checks ambition. And it's like, what happens when most of the people in Washington have no apparent ambition except to keep their current role or current job?
Yeah.
Or just like get through the day without having to like, explain why Trump did something or justify something Trump said.
Yeah. Well, like kind of on that note, it's like when you look at Wikipedia of like all 100 senators, like I pay a lot of attention to politics and I can probably name at least half of the senators, but like there's like a random senator from Mississippi. I don't fucking know their name. They just vote straight party line on everything. I've never heard of them. I don't think I've ever seen them on like CNN or
what that
like
is they've done nothing notorious or nothing like notable that like mainstream media would talk about them or give like the average person from another state a reason to know their name.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But, in terms of the, like, speaking of ambition, right? Like right now, there's a pretty strong Senate candidate on the Democratic side going against. I think speaking of Mississippi, I think it's like what's her name? Something Hyde Smith. I think that's just kind of like this older lady that like even a Republican official was saying that like if she will like walk down the street totally naked, no one would notice that it was the senator and one bit naked on the street. But it's like like I don't know. I guess I lost my I just went off on a tangent, but I don't know. I guess, but going back to your point about like the DSA kind of divide of Democrats, it's like every district is different and you nominate and elect the people that you think will speak for you. So just the more voices you have, the better, right? I think a lot of things, like people are so dissatisfied with the Democratic Party right now anyway. If you go a little more liberal, it might just make the national party approval rating go up. It might actually encourage more people to consider themselves Democrats. It might actually get more people out to vote, right? Like that's kind of a recurring problem right now. The Democrats are so unpopular. And again, it goes back to that Mark Maron quote of just like Democrats have just annoyed people into fascism. And maybe if you had strong candidates that actually wanted to like literally fight for Medicare for all and all these things, like all the things that Democrats always do lip service for, but then just act totally kind of centrist and like you just start debating with Republicans and dealing with them already in the middle so the Republicans can attack everything far to the right with their like insane like just firebomb throwing politics. Like maybe it's a good thing if Democrats got a little more radical, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton were good candidates. I thought both of them.
Did you really think Kamala Harris was a good candidate?
Well, no, in terms of like better than Trump, and like I thought Kamala Harris's strategy of trying to attract Republican voters that gave a shit about democracy and the Constitution, but I was wrong. So I don't know. Maybe it would be good for Democrats to take a more left candidate.
I always wonder because like the quote about like, oh, Democrats had like annoyed people into fascism, and it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the logic of that like agency or whatever. And it's like, isn't there like a bigger role of like, there's a lot of people who just like, I don't know, sold their soul to the devil to vote for someone who they knew was like the worst. It's like people always joke American politics, you vote for the lesser of two evils, but like what about the millions of people who knowingly voted for the worst of the two evils and said fuck it for 4 years?
I like that meme where it's like Mr. Rogers and then Satan and it's like 51.1, 49.9 or it's like what is it? It's puppies for everyone, diarrhea forever. 51.1, 49. 99.9. That's like
Yeah.
literally what it is. But no, to that point, I think that's like one of the most astute observation of our politics, because I think Democrats do annoy people into fascism. You get that whole like everyone, like the whole idea that like just because Joe Rogan, like anybody that could go on Joe Rogan and all those dumb podcasts in 2024 made people think Trump was like the better candidate and all these Republicans. I do think that's true because, and like some of it's bad faith, of course, like Republicans are not really being good faith politicians when they're just saying every Democrat wants all your daughters to lose to men in their high school meets, and like every bathroom your daughter will go into, there's going to be a man in a dress there trying to peep on her. So like obviously it's not good faith, but I do think it's like it goes back to like that 2020 debate where it's like who here thinks who here thinks the government should pay for sex changes from illegal
In federal
immigrants in
prisons.
prison? And all of them raise their hands. Like that is fucking annoying people into fascism a little bit, right?
Well, yeah, and it's complicated because, like, yeah, there's some like fucking weirdos on the left, and like it's like the proverbial or memeified, like, crazy trans person with green or blue hair or whatever. But like, it's like funny because like while those people like, yeah, they annoy me too, but I don't think like we should be using government to constitutionally bar them from civic life. And it's like if that's like if
Right.
that's too much, and you think I'm like an extreme person who's going to make you vote with the fascists or whatever, it's like I don't know what to make of that. Like again, like I don't like a lot of the shit in life I see either. I just don't think we should use the federal government to constitutionally
No,
prohibit
I mean,
them
but again,
from life.
like literally you are right. But again, it's like, how much like literally our elections come down to the 10,000 fucking stupidest people in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that don't fucking know anything and don't pay attention to politics, but they'll go out to vote and just, pick the person they want to have a beer with, pick the person that they saw in Joe Rogan. Like every election, it's like just some dumb little kind of like flash case of like relatability or whatever that,
I'll give you
again, the dumbest people in like three states decide.
It reminds me, so like in the military, they do like fit reps for officers and evaluations or evals for like enlisted. And it's like this whole thing where you like have a write up and you get scored and stuff and ranked or whatever. And it's like, there's always like the people who are the worst who get like, so you have like early promote, EP, MP, must promote, and then just P for promote. And then it's like, there's rules on how many people can go in each category, with most of them being just like Ps for promote. And it's funny because like you get like the worst people who get like Ps and they go, this is bullshit. Like I should have been an EP. If you don't think I'm EP material, I'm not going to do my job and I'm just going to do P material. And it's like, this is exactly why you did not get EP or MP. And it's like, those people are like, oh, there's a woman somewhere who became a man in a state I don't live in. Girls. And it's like, I'm going to vote for the fascists. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, to your point, like the 10,000 worst people. And it's like, that's your fucking takeaway.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I guess it's like a good thing culturally in a weird way that we all, because I've said this before, we all bitch and complain about the same shit that like happens literally, 1,500 miles away in a continental sized country. The fact that like you give a fuck what's happening in some small private school in San Francisco, in fucking like rural Maryland.
Right.
You're like, the world's coming to, the country's going to shit because San Francisco did something stupid. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people who look around the world and they're those people. It's like those 10,000 people who just like, well, I guess I have to vote for Trump now or the fascists or whatever. But
right.
Not a point there, just an observation.
Well, yeah. And it's like another dumb thing where it's like a lot of conservatives will do this when we are attacking Donald Trump for his obvious like moral like awfulness and just incompetence, and then they always like they'll pull off somebody like some liberal from Twitter that did something stupid and be like, both sides do it, or they'll be like, I just think it's so silly that Democrats blame Trump for this, but then some fucking person with no power and like 10 followers on Twitter did something fucking stupid as if that's the same thing.
Well, it's like the Hunter
one
Biden
is the
thing.
president. One's the president of the United States. The other is a person that has no power, ran for something and fucking lost. It's like like Graham Plattner, like Democrats literally kicked him off the ballot, right? So it's like, oh, Graham Plattner also treats women badly. Why are Democrats such hypocrites about Trump with the Epstein files? It's like, yeah, Democrats actually did something, and like the crimes are a world apart in degree, right?
Well, the other thing too is like, the Graham Plattner thing. There's a lot of, there are a lot of accusations right now. So like, that's why we have courts of law to like determine whether things happen or not. But like, whatever Graham Plattner did, like, has to pale in comparison to like how we started this, which is literally the most prolific, notorious child sex predator in the world known today. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
and that's the problem is like, oh, well, like if you're going to compare Graham Plattner to like the Epstein victims and stuff, and it's like, well, again, we have Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General who refused to pull that thread at all. Don't there's like
Yeah.
literally hundreds of thousands or millions of documents that the government has on these people, and they're like, oh, I guess we don't do anything. But Graham Plattner, someone said 3 years ago that they said something terrible, and it's like we have to, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you're minimizing a little bit. I think a bunch of women have now accused him of rape, but I get your point generally.
To
Yeah.
be fair, I don't know exactly what all he's accused of.
Okay. That's fair.
Because he kind of lost me with the Totenkopf. Once I heard about that, I was like, I think you should probably step down.
Right.
Yeah. It's like oh, I didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo, and it's like, well, why do you know the Nazi name for it?
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I had no clue. Like, seeing the tattoo, like, I would have no clue. Yeah, but I guess I'm glad there are some people very aware of Nazi symbolism or whatever and imagery. I think that's kind of everything I have note-wise. Anything come up in your mind in the last week, or anything politically you want to talk about in current events?
No, I mean, well, I mean, not to speak ill of the dead, but Lindsey Graham, is
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if this is the way he wanted his legacy to go out. Like, he wanted to support Ukraine. He didn't really succeed with that. It's kind of, he has been unable to move Trump very concretely in that way, or at least end the war, get a ceasefire. And then it's like, he was someone who really likes the American, I didn't know this, but apparently he was like a JAG officer and like a captain, not a captain, a colonel or whatever in the reserves, Air Force Reserves or whatever. And it's like, so someone who loved the military, loved John McCain, like, is this his legacy now? And then like, it also goes to show too that like, I was thinking about it this way, like, whatever his legacy is, it doesn't matter because he's a senator. So he was 70 or whatever, 71.
71,
so,
yeah.
So in his mind, he's probably like, I got 20 fucking years left here in the Senate. So like, it made me think, like, was he really worried about his legacy? Is he going to be like, would he in another, alternate reality where he didn't have this heart event, just become like, Chuck Grassley and, 96-year-old Lindsey Graham having been a U.S. senator for 50 years again? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I looked it up. Strom Thurmond was like 100 years old, I think, before when he retired. He was like the longest serving senator, I think, ever. Or maybe Chuck Grassley now has overtaken that record. But yeah, he was like, I think 100. He retired and then died a year later or something. It's just insane.
Like, Jesus Christ!
He
like,
had Lindsey Graham's Senate seat before Graham.
Yeah. I don't know. People just don't give up power. It kind of reminds me, like, I saw this hilarious video. It was like on social media with Katie, and it was like this old lady who had like an urn. She talked about how like everything sucked. I hurt all the time, having pain. I've been around too fucking long. And she goes, I yearn for my urn. And it's like, why can't these like old members of Congress just realize that they're done and go out and not like just try to like, they say, like, we've joked, like, just die of old age in your office and have some 21-year-old Senate page find your corpse in your office because you didn't give up power.
There was like a Republican House member, I think, that like started missing votes for months, and then they found her in a nursing home or hospice or something. Like, literally, they found her like literally out of her mind, and just like her staff is just like, I guess, just keeping their job and paychecks a little longer or something. But
it makes you wonder too, because like, what is the majority leader, whatever the party is at the time, the whip? Like, hey, when you're missing votes, like, does anyone fucking tell the whip? Like, hey, you're
there's that other Republican guy that was missing like the last 6 months of votes or something, 8 months, and then he just came out saying he was like he had depression or something, and he had to stay off. But kind of weird. You get elected to this thing to serve the people, and then you don't do the job, and then no one knows where you're at.
Well, then the worst, like, is like, not to both sides this, but like Diane Feinstein, like literally being wheeled
Right.
around like has no idea. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad. Where are these people's families and friends who like
Yeah,
them?
elder abuse. What
Yeah,
do you make of Lindsey Graham's sister taking over? Are we a meritocracy where it's like a hereditary thing? If you die in office, a completely unqualified and
family member.
just unknown family member takes over. Like, wouldn't it be funny if she turned out to be like a hardcore like liberal?
That would be funny. Kind of like Fifth Element there.
Yeah, just switches parties
Did she
immediately.
like? What's her career? Like, has she done any? Has she done anything?
I don't know. She was like a lawyer of some kind. I don't
I
know.
will say, on the face of it,
But
it sounds
what's Trump's
bad.
angle? Why did Trump come out like immediately and like endorse her? And then all the Republicans that were endorsing, they were like Trey Gowdy got brought up, I think, and then immediately other time like, oh yeah, no, Lindsey Graham's sister is the one I endorse.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Maybe they've met her. Maybe she's like involved in like Republican politics. I don't know. I know
Yeah.
nothing about her, so
Do you
this is
think?
the least informed response I'll have.
Yeah. In terms of Mitch McConnell again, do you think like Mitch McConnell will just retire like a second after the deadline's over, or they'll admit he's dead like a second after that deadline happens? Oh, Mitch McConnell just had another stroke. Unfortunately, he died.
If he
Oh,
was really alive,
we can't have a replacement election.
wouldn't they have a photo of him being up and like with flowers and stuff in the room? Like, I would think, like, unless he's like
Well,
comatose or
that's
whatever.
the mystery.
Yeah, I
That's
guess.
a mystery. Now, Andy Bashir, I guess he came out and said that he got two phone calls of people claiming that Mitch McConnell had died. And I don't know if they were like nurses or something like that, or some kind of somehow medically involved in some way. But that's kind of interesting. Maybe we can uh, put a peg in that and come back to it later, put a pin in it and come back to it later.
I mean, depending on what
But it
happened to
is,
you, like, you can be brain dead and they can keep you like hooked up to machines and technically alive, even
so
though
you're
you're not
technically
coming
alive.
back. And
Yeah.
like, so they're just gonna leave his body there, like vegetating until like August 2nd or whatever the deadline
Yeah.
is. It's kind of
Well,
absurd.
there was that thing where his wife immediately went to China or Taiwan or whatever, like 3
Yeah,
days after it happened, and then was
pretty
just
weird.
gone for days, and they couldn't contact her. Like, what the fuck?
Pretty weird.
So weird.
Well,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
connection's like
Any
cutting out
other
really bad.
last thoughts? Oh, is it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Any last thoughts before we go?
No. No.
No. All right. All right. Well, thanks in with us on this Sunday evening. The political world that we inhabit is fucking batshit crazy. It's nice to know that we're not all alone out there. So thanks everybody for
Yeah.
tuning in to Brain Milk. Good to talk to you, Adrian. And I've got a podcast tomorrow I'll do a Substack live tomorrow with a candidate that's running for the House in Virginia. So if you're interested, stay tuned on
Oh,
that.
wow.
I'll probably release it on Tuesday, but we'll be doing a live tomorrow Central Time, 2 p.m. So if you're interested. And of
Cool.
course, check out the Halfway Post. I've been going very viral this week because of Trump's speech and a lot of things. I've gotten a lot of good retweets lately. I'm getting retweeted by the Monty Python guys a lot lately. Eric Idle and John Cleese.
Oh, that's
Al
cool.
Jean, do you remember that name? He
No.
was like one of the original producers of The Simpsons. He's been retweeting me a lot lately. I got
Hmm.
retweeted by Tim Miller recently. I had a joke about Pete Hegseth being interested in monitoring soldiers' quote anal hymens to make sure we're not letting gay people into some elements of the military. And I guess Tim Miller
Anal
of the
hymen.
Bulwark fame got a kick out of that.
Well, that's funny.
But yeah. So check out my comedy. It gets me through the day when I am doom scrolling all day, and it helps a few other people out there. They get a kick out of it too. So thanks for tuning into Brain Milk. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend, and catch you later. See you, everybody. See you.